I want you to take a moment and really notice how you feel right now. Maybe your mind is scattered, or maybe it's quiet. That feeling, that small hesitation when the alarm goes off in the morning. It's subtle, isn't it? Almost invisible, yet it has so much to tell us about ourselves. I wonder, do you ever feel that there's a part of life you're overlooking? Something quietly shaping your future without you even realizing it? I remember waking up one morning and realizing that my thoughts were already busy with distractions. Emails, to-dos, endless plans. But then I paused. And I asked myself, what if the way I begin my day matters more than the tasks themselves? Strange question, isn't it? Yet it stayed with me. That simple reflection began a quiet transformation, a recognition that small habits, nearly invisible, are the real architects of life's outcomes. Think about it. The people who rise to extraordinary heights, those we call billionaires, they don't stumble into success by chance. They are quiet engineers of their own lives. Before the world notices them, they have already done the work internally, and much of it is invisible. A pause to reflect, a moment of intentional thought, a commitment to control their own mornings. These are not dramatic gestures. They are whispers of consistency. They are the small, almost unnoticed choices that compound into something immense. I once observed a friend, someone deeply ambitious. He didn't spend hours at the gym or work frantically for recognition. Instead, his mornings were sacred. Before the sun, he would rise and sit in silence, just him and his mind, exploring questions about life, about opportunity, about how to become not just rich, but deeply effective. It seemed ordinary to outsiders, but I realized that ordinary was deceptive. Ordinary was the silent forge of greatness. And that is the first lesson we rarely acknowledge. Greatness begins quietly. Have you noticed how small routines shape your day without your permission? The coffee you make in a certain order, the moment you check your phone, the way you stretch your hands towards the morning light. These are the frameworks of habit, often dismissed as trivial. Yet, they are the foundation upon which extraordinary lives are built. Maybe that's why some people seem effortlessly successful. Not because luck favors them, but because they've mastered the invisible rhythms that guide their days. I want you to imagine waking tomorrow and approaching your morning differently. Not with the mindless scroll, not with the immediate rush, but with intention. Just 10 minutes of conscious thought. Maybe you breathe. Maybe you write. Maybe you simply sit and observe your own mind. That 10 minutes is more powerful than most hours spent reacting to the chaos around you, because it sets a tone, a quiet, unshakable tone that tells your brain and your body, today is deliberate. Today is purposeful. And here's something subtle, something often ignored. The inner voice matters more than the external noise. Billionaires listen to that voice. They honor it with reflection, with strategy, with gentle questioning. You might think it's abstract or philosophical, but it's actually very concrete. Every decision, every risk, every opportunity is filtered through the habits of thought cultivated long before anyone notices the results. That is their invisible edge. I remember a day when I tried to replicate this. I rose before dawn, sat quietly with my own thoughts, and realized how much of my mind was cluttered by old patterns, by distractions, by trivial worries. In that stillness, I began to notice possibilities I had ignored, patterns in my own behavior, doors that had been closed, quietly waiting for attention. And that is the second truth. Noticing your own small habits is not trivial. It is transformative. The invisible scaffolding of your life begins to reveal itself when you simply pause. Maybe it feels overwhelming to think that success is built on invisible, daily rituals. Maybe you think, I can't control everything. And you're right, you can't. But you can control the small moments. You can decide how to start your day, how to direct your attention, how to nurture the habits that will silently carry you toward extraordinary results. Isn't that strange? The tiniest actions, repeated daily, are the ones that sculpt destiny itself. And I want you to hold that thought as you breathe. Imagine yourself 5 years from now, not relying on luck or sudden breakthroughs, but guided by the small, intentional choices you make each morning. That is not a fantasy. That is a blueprint. The blueprint of subtle habits that compound silently, unnoticed, until one day, you wake and see the magnitude of what you have created. And in that moment, you understand it was never luck. It was the quiet, persistent, invisible work done day after day. Maybe you've noticed how the world glorifies big gestures, overnight success, dramatic breakthroughs. massive achievements. But those moments are rare, fleeting really. They're visible only because someone has already done the invisible work for years. The morning routines, the quiet reflections, the disciplined pauses. These are the foundations, the uncelebrated hours where growth happens unnoticed. That is the subtle power I want you to feel today. I remember sitting in a cafe once, watching a man quietly write in a journal while the city rushed past. Nobody noticed him, nobody cared, but there was a kind of quiet authority in the way he moved, the way he focused. I thought, he's building something invisible, something that will matter later. Strange, isn't it? How the world rushes past the most important work. Because it is invisible, because it is small, because it feels ordinary. But ordinary is deceptive. Ordinary, when repeated consistently, is extraordinary. You see, the truth about habits is this: they don't need to be impressive to be powerful. The billionaire's advantage is not a secret formula or a sudden spark of genius. It is the slow, steady accumulation of small, deliberate choices. A decision to wake early, to read, to reflect, to treat every interaction as an opportunity to learn, every failure as feedback, every moment as a chance to grow. And perhaps the hardest part is believing in the invisible. Believing that the mundane, repeated daily truly matters. But it does. I want you to imagine a day in your own life when you treat each morning as sacred. Not because you are ambitious, not because you want wealth, but because you want mastery over your mind, over your choices, over the rhythms that guide you. That is the invisible work. That is where the future is quietly shaped. Strange, isn't it? How the world notices only the results, yet the true magic lives in the preparation, in the quiet discipline of your daily habits. Sometimes I wonder how many potential billionaires are walking around, unaware of their own patterns. They have ambition, ideas, dreams, but they overlook the invisible scaffolding. They skip the reflection, ignore the rhythm, and surrender their mornings to distraction. And it shows, not in dramatic failure, but in slow erosion, the slow accumulation of missed opportunities, of untapped potential. That is why noticing your habits is so powerful. It is an act of reclamation, of claiming your own future. I remember another morning, walking through a park while the city was still asleep. The air was crisp, birds moved silently, and I thought about how invisible moments are full of guidance, full of insight. The quiet repetition of small actions shapes a life in ways that noise never can. Each small decision, each tiny habit, like water dropping on stone, slowly carving the shape of what will come. And I realized, it isn't the grand gestures that define us. It is the subtle, consistent ones, the ones almost nobody sees. And yet there is a joy in this subtlety, a freedom actually, because you don't need recognition to build greatness. You don't need applause to create wealth, impact, or mastery. You simply need consistency, a willingness to notice yourself, to guide your own days with intention, to honor the quiet moments as if they were treasures. That's where the power lies, hidden, subtle, but unstoppable once cultivated. Have you ever paused long enough to notice the texture of your thoughts at the start of the day? The first quiet hour before emails, before calls, before the obligations? There is clarity there. There is possibility. If you cultivate it, if you nurture it, it grows. And slowly, over months and years, it becomes a force that shapes your life. Not dramatically, but relentlessly. That is the invisible advantage, the subtle habit of future billionaires. And it is available to you today, right now. So as you breathe, consider this: the work you do on yourself in private, the attention you give to your own thoughts, the deliberate shaping of your mornings and mindsets. These are not small things. They are everything. They are the foundation of extraordinary lives. And perhaps, if you start tomorrow, you will understand it in time. Perhaps one day quietly, you will notice the vast distance you've traveled and realize it was built on the invisible, one deliberate habit at a time. I want you to imagine the quiet hours before sunrise. Maybe you've experienced them, maybe not. There is a stillness there, almost sacred. The world hasn't demanded your attention yet, and the noise hasn't crept in. In that space, your mind is raw, open, curious. It's where the future quietly waits, waiting for you to shape it with your thoughts, your intentions, your small, deliberate actions. I once spoke with someone who had achieved remarkable success, not by accident, not overnight, but because he treated each day like a canvas, and his mornings like the first stroke of a masterpiece. He said something that stayed with me. Most people spend their mornings reacting. I choose to create. That simple phrase, create rather than react, carries more weight than you might think. It's subtle, yes, invisible perhaps, but it changes everything. Maybe you wonder how small habits can lead to unimaginable wealth. It's easy to dismiss morning rituals, journaling, mindful breathing, or focused reading. And yet, these are the invisible engines. They align your attention, train your mind to see opportunity, and teach patience. Wealth, influence, mastery. They are byproducts of consistent, intentional practice. Not flashy, not public, but unstoppable when done day after day. I remember a time when I tried to imitate someone I admired. I focused on outward signs of success, the expensive gadgets, the hours in the office, the public achievements. But I felt empty. It wasn't the tools or recognition that mattered. It was the invisible practices, the rituals that no one saw. Those moments of stillness, reflection, and deliberate action were the true difference makers. And I realized then, the path to extraordinary life isn't about appearances. It's about habits, subtle, quiet, persistent habits. Think about your own routines. How often do you let your mornings slip into autopilot? How often do you respond to notifications, obligations, or distractions before you even have a chance to orient your mind? The invisible difference between ordinary days and extraordinary lives often lives in those first minutes. How you breathe, what you think, how you choose to focus. That is the unseen architecture of success. And here's something I want you to feel deeply. Small choices matter more than large ones when repeated over time. That extra 10 minutes of reflection, that deliberate pause before reacting, that mindful decision rather than impulsive response, these accumulate, slowly, quietly, unnoticed by the world. But in 10 years, in 20, the results are undeniable. That is the subtle magic of compounding habits. Strange, isn't it? How power can be invisible, almost secret, yet absolute. I remember sitting on a bench once, watching people rush past, all caught in their routines, unaware of the invisible patterns shaping their lives. Some looked anxious, some distracted, some hurried. And I realized that most people never notice the power they carry. The power in their own attention, their own habits, their own choices. Yet those who do notice, who honor their mornings, who nurture their focus, quietly stand apart. They become architects of opportunity, builders of wealth, masters of themselves. Maybe you feel impatient thinking, I want results now. I understand. I have felt that too. But here's the subtle truth. Meaningful results are rarely immediate. They emerge from repetition, from the invisible scaffolding of your actions. And the first step is noticing, pausing just enough to see the small habits that will ultimately define you. It is a patient, almost meditative process. And yet, it is thrilling, isn't it? Knowing that your life can be quietly sculpted from these invisible moments. So as you listen, consider the mornings ahead, the moments before the day truly begins, the few minutes you choose to spend in reflection, in intentional thought, in planning not just tasks, but your mindset. These are gifts you give to yourself. Small, quiet, but transformative gifts. The subtle habits of future billionaires are not grand or flashy. They are deliberate, patient, intimate. And they are waiting for you to adopt them, to nurture them, to live them quietly, before anyone notices, before anyone applauds, before the world even stirs. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to underestimate yourself? How quietly we allow distractions, doubts, and small hesitations to steer our days without even realizing it. That is the trap. It is subtle, invisible, but it matters more than you might imagine. The people who rise to extraordinary heights, they notice these tiny steering points. They gently reclaim their attention, their focus, their energy. That is their invisible advantage. I remember a morning when I felt overwhelmed by everything I thought I should do. I was tired, distracted, unsure where to begin. And yet, I decided to start with nothing more than a deliberate breath, a conscious pause, and a small intention. Today I will notice my own habits. Strange, isn't it? How a single decision, so simple, can shift the momentum of your entire day. And in that shift, I glimpsed the real work of mastery, not in grand achievements, but in subtle, repeated choices. Think about the mornings you have spent rushing, reacting, waiting for the world to tell you what to do. Now imagine approaching your day differently, sitting quietly for a few minutes, observing your thoughts, letting your mind settle before it is bombarded by noise. That small pause is more than meditation. It is training your inner world to respond, not react. It is a subtle act of sovereignty over your own life. And that is exactly what separates those who achieve extraordinary outcomes from those who drift through their days. Sometimes, I wonder how many people would see their own potential if they only noticed the invisible rhythms of their lives, the way habits accumulate like invisible currents beneath the surface of the sea. They carry us toward or away from our dreams without our conscious awareness. That is the subtle power of routine, the quiet sculptor of destiny. And perhaps it is the most democratic of powers, available to anyone who chooses to pay attention. I want you to imagine a man quietly seated in the early morning light. He does not make a spectacle of his work. He writes in his journal. He reflects. He moves intentionally. Nobody watches. Nobody applauds. Yet this is where greatness is quietly forged. The invisible rituals, the reading, the reflection, the deliberate focus, these are more valuable than any flashy display. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, they shape a life capable of unimaginable success. Maybe it feels lonely to embrace such invisible work, to focus on subtle habits while the world chases instant results. But there is a serenity in it, a calm confidence that you are doing what most people cannot or will not do. That quiet work, unnoticed, uncelebrated, is the foundation upon which all lasting achievement is built. Strange, isn't it? How something so small, so ordinary, can hold such immense power. And then there is the question of mindset. Billionaires are not just wealthy because of money, they are wealthy because of perspective. They see opportunity where others see chaos. They approach failure as insight, not defeat. And this perspective is cultivated long before results appear. It is nurtured in quiet reflection, in disciplined attention, in the habitual shaping of thought. Every small habit reinforces the lens through which they view the world. A lens of possibility, of growth, of subtle mastery. I want you to feel that lens now. Imagine looking at your own life through it. Every morning, every interaction, every small choice becomes an opportunity to practice, to refine, to grow. You do not need to see immediate results. You do not need applause. You only need the quiet, persistent dedication to your invisible craft. That is the subtle habit that compounds over time. That is the quiet secret behind lives that seem extraordinary, but are built on nothing more than consistent attention to detail, to thought, to intention. And so, as you breathe, let yourself notice the power of the invisible. The routines you dismiss, the small choices you underestimate, they are far more potent than you think. Each one, a tiny investment in the architecture of your future. And perhaps one day, silently, you will look back and understand how the invisible shaped everything, how subtle habits, repeated with care, became the foundation of your own extraordinary life. Now I want you to take a deep breath and really let this sink in. Everything we've spoken about, the invisible habits, the quiet mornings, the subtle choices, they are all gifts you can give yourself, gifts that the world may never notice, yet that shape your entire destiny. And isn't that strange? How the most powerful work is often unseen, yet it carries the weight of everything you hope to achieve. I remember a moment of clarity once, walking through a quiet street before sunrise. The world was still asleep. The air was cool, crisp, and full of possibility. And I realized that those who achieve extraordinary lives are not fundamentally different from the rest of us. They simply practice the invisible arts of attention, reflection, and deliberate choice, day after day, without fanfare, without expectation. That is the secret. That is the blueprint. Maybe you wonder if it really matters. The 10 minutes of journaling, the deliberate breath, the mindful reflection. I promise you it does. It matters because it trains your mind to notice opportunity, to manage distraction, to approach life with clarity and intention. Small habits, repeated consistently, build a resilience that no crisis can shake, a focus that no noise can disrupt, a vision that no temporary setback can blur. And slowly, silently, they compound into results that seem almost magical to outsiders. Think about your own mornings. How many of them pass unnoticed, taken over by emails, notifications, and external demands? What if starting tomorrow, you approach those hours differently? What if you created just 10 minutes of intentional, deliberate thought? You may not see results immediately, but trust me, the invisible work always pays off. It shapes your decisions, your energy, your mindset. It positions you for opportunity before opportunity even arrives. That is the quiet advantage of subtle habits. I want you to imagine yourself years from now, looking back, not at the flashy accomplishments, not at the accolades, but at the steady rhythm of your invisible work. You will see the mornings you chose reflection over distraction, the moments you chose intention over chaos, the habits you nurtured quietly while the world rushed past. And you will understand. You will finally understand that those small, unseen moments were the architects of your extraordinary life. Sometimes, I wonder how many people overlook this truth. How many surrender to the noise and miss the invisible rhythm that could elevate them. And perhaps it is because it requires patience, because it asks us to trust what we cannot yet see. But that trust is everything. That quiet faith in your own habits, repeated with care, becomes your most reliable companion. It carries you farther than luck, farther than raw talent, farther than anyone could imagine. And so, as you sit with this, breathe slowly and feel the weight of these words. Know that your life is in your hands. Every choice, every habit, every subtle action matters. Wealth, influence, mastery. They are not the results of chance. They are the outcomes of deliberate, persistent, invisible work. And that work begins now, in the quiet moments, in the mornings, in the choices you make today. Even before anyone sees, even before anyone applauds. Maybe that is the most beautiful thing about it, that you do not need recognition. You do not need to impress. You simply need consistency. You simply need presence. You simply need to honor your own mind, your own rhythms, your own subtle habits. And as you do, you become unstoppable. Not because of luck, not because of privilege, not because of external validation, but because you have mastered yourself. You have shaped your days, your thoughts, your habits, and that, quietly, becomes everything. So as we end this journey together, carry this thought with you. Greatness is quiet, subtle, invisible. It is built in the spaces no one notices. It is nurtured in the habits repeated in private. And it is yours to claim if you choose to notice, to act, and to persist. The subtle habits of future billionaires are not a secret. They are a practice that begins with awareness and blooms through gentle, persistent effort, until one day, quietly, you realize that you have arrived, that you have built something extraordinary. And all along, it was simply the result of paying attention to the invisible, subtle, powerful rhythm of your own life.